All right, so getting ready for the CISSP exam,
Yeah,
it can feel overwhelming,
absolutely. Yep.
especially when you get to Domain 1 security and risk management.
Oh, yeah, that's the foundation.
It really is. It's the basis of the whole CISSP framework.
It is.
And in a way, it's kind of where a lot of us cybersecurity pros,
Uh,
really sort of got our start.
right, cut our teeth.
Exactly, cut our teeth. But the exam wants you to be able to,
Yeah.
talk the talk.
Yeah, they have their own language for sure.
They really do.
And that's where this deep dive comes in.
Exactly.
You've got your notes, you've got your study guides.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe some textbooks.
Dog-eared textbook,
Dog-eared for sure.
highlighter, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely. But we're going to try to distill it all down
Yes.
to just those crucial nuggets
Exactly.
that are most likely to show up
Yes.
on exam day.
And we're going to do it in a way that really connects to your daily work
Yeah.
because,
It's one thing to memorize it. It's another thing to actually live it.
to live it exactly, and you're living it every day. So
Yeah.
let's start with a bedrock of security.
Right.
The CIA triad.
All right.
This is, confidentiality, integrity, availability.
Yeah, the good old CIA triad.
We've all heard those terms
A million times.
a million times, but let's bring them to life a little. Let's make this practical.
So imagine a company loses a laptop,
Okay.
and it's got customer data on it,
Mm-hmm.
unencrypted customer data.
That's a problem.
Bam, confidentiality breach.
Huge problem.
Yeah, and that's why you, as a cybersecurity pro,
Yeah,
are implementing things like encryption protocols, access controls,
of course.
and you're training your team on data handling best practices.
Because it's not theoretical,
Yeah,
right? You're preventing that nightmare
absolutely.
in the real world.
Real world stuff.
Okay, but what about integrity?
All right.
It's not just about keeping data secret.
Right.
It's making sure it's accurate.
It's got to be accurate.
So what happens when a hacker gets into a system
Oh, boy.
and they start altering financial records? Or even worse, medical data.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking problems, right?
Yeah, they probably.
Suddenly reports are wrong, diagnoses are skewed.
Chaos.
It's chaos. And that's where integrity checks come in.
Right.
Things like hashing algorithms and digital signatures.
Absolutely. Got to have those in place.
So critical.
Yeah, it's like having that feeling,
Yes.
that gut
And
feeling.
you know something's been messed with.
Yeah, that a file's been tampered with.
Exactly. But instead of a feeling, we've got concrete ways to verify it.
You got it.
Now, the last piece of the CIA puzzle,
Okay.
and this is the one that maybe keeps us up at night
Keeps you up at night.
a little bit. Availability.
Availability.
Let's say your company's website goes down
Okay.
during a huge product launch.
No.
Customers can't get to it.
Nope.
Orders can't be processed.
Bad news.
Your reputation takes a major hit.
Yep. Availability is all about preventing those disruptions. It's exactly. So you're thinking redundancy,
Redundancy?
failover solutions,
Gotta have them.
disaster recovery plans.
That's right.
These are our weapons against downtime.
It's like having that backup generator
Yes.
when the power goes out.
When the power goes out, you're ready.
You're ready for anything.
You're ready for anything, and
Right.
that's what we want.
Exactly.
Now, the CISSP exam loves to test whether you can apply these principles.
Oh, for sure.
So think about it.
Think about it.
How do you ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability
In your job.
in your daily work?
Yeah. What are the tools and the strategies that you use?
I love that now beyond the CIA triad,
Okay.
there are a few other essential concepts lurking in Domain 1.
Mm-hmm.
Authentication, authorization, accountability, and non-repudiation.
Yeah, those are mouthful.
They sound very textbooky,
They do.
but they're really the backbone of a secure system.
They are.
So let's break them down.
Okay.
Authentication is your first line of defense.
Right.
It's verifying identity.
It is. Is this user who they say they are?
Right. Are they allowed to access the system?
Are they allowed to access the system?
Yeah. Think passwords, biometrics, two-factor authentication.
All of that.
It's all about proving who you are.
Proving who you are.
Yeah.
I love it.
You got it.
And once someone's an authorization kicks in,
Right.
okay, you've proven who you are,
Yeah.
but what are you allowed to do?
What are you allowed to do?
Can you access this file?
Right.
Can you change this data?
Yeah. Authorization is all about granting that right level of access
Exactly.
based on your roles and responsibilities.
I like it. And this is where it gets really interesting. Accountability.
Accountability.
If something goes wrong,
Oh.
and let's face it, things do go wrong.
They do.
You need a way to trace those actions back to the source.
You got to be able to track it.
So you're talking logging,
Yeah.
auditing, monitoring.
That's right. Your forensic tools.
Like security cameras.
Exactly.
for your data.
You can see who did what, when, and where.
I love it. And then that leads us to non-repudiation,
All right.
which basically means making sure someone can't deny
Yeah.
that they took an action.
They can't say, I didn't do it.
Right.
Think digital signatures on legal documents or
Yeah.
financial transactions.
Oh.
It's undeniable proof.
You did this.
You did this.
And you can't say you didn't.
Nope.
I love it. Now, all of these concepts kind of feed into this bigger picture of risk management,
Risk management.
which is basically the heart and soul of Domain One.
It is.
And it's not about preventing every possible threat.
Yeah.
It's about understanding those risks,
Yeah.
analyzing them, and managing them
And figuring out which ones are most important
to your organization.
to
Exactly.
your organization.
And risk management is a continuous process.
It is.
It never stops. So first, you need to know what you're protecting.
Asset identification.
Asset identification, that could be anything from physical servers,
Keep good.
data centers,
Yeah.
to the data itself.
All of it.
It's about knowing what's valuable,
It's absolute.
both the tangible and the intangible.
Tangible and intangible.
But then you need to know what you're protecting it from.
Oh, yeah.
And that's threat assessment.
Threat assessment.
This is where it gets exciting.
This is the fun part.
This is the fun part because now we're talking hackers,
Hackers.
malware,
Malware.
natural disasters,
Oh, yeah.
disgruntled employees.
They're out there.
They are out there. Anything that could disrupt your operations
Right.
or compromise those assets.
Exactly.
And then, of course, we can't forget those vulnerabilities,
The vulnerability.
weaknesses in your systems
Oh,
that those threats could exploit.
that's right.
An outdated software,
Yeah.
a misconfigured firewall, even a weak password.
Oh, yeah.
These are the cracks in your armor
That's a good way to put it.
that attackers are looking for.
They're looking for those cracks.
So it's like doing a security audit of your entire organization.
It is.
But you're not just looking for those vulnerabilities. You're thinking about who might try to exploit them
Yeah.
and what the impact would be.
Exactly.
And once you've identified your assets, your threats, your vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
you got to figure out how much risk
How much risk?
they actually pose.
Right.
And that's where risk calculation comes in.
Risk calculation.
And the CISSP exam really wants you to understand
The difference.
the difference between quantitative
Quantitative.
and qualitative
Qualitative.
risk assessment.
That's right.
So quantitative is all about the numbers,
Numbers.
putting numbers to those risks.
Data driven.
Very data-driven.
Absolutely.
You're calculating the potential financial impact of a data breach
Yeah.
or the likelihood of a particular attack actually succeeding.
That's quantitative.
Qualitative is a little more subjective.
A little bit.
It's about assigning risk levels
Okay.
based on the potential impact
Right.
and the likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability.
I see.
So it's often used when hard data is scarce. And it relies more on expert judgment
And experience.
and experience.
Yeah.
So it's like the difference between saying
Okay.
there's a 10% chance of this server being hacked and it'll cost us $1 million
Right.
versus saying the risk of this server being hacked is high
Oh,
because it's running outdated software and it's got sensitive customer data.
right. So one's numbers.
Numbers.
One's
More
subjective.
subjective.
Yeah.
I like it.
You got it.
And the point of assessing risk is to figure out
What to do about it.
what to do about it.
Exactly.
That's where those 4 risk response strategies come in.
All right. Let's hear them.
Avoidance, mitigation, transfer, and acceptance.
The 4 big ones.
The 4 big ones.
Okay.
So let's make this practical.
Okay. I like practical.
Imagine your company's considering a new cloud service.
Okay.
But there are some concerns about data security.
Ah.
How would you apply each of these strategies
To that scenario.
to that scenario?
Okay. Well, avoidance is the most straightforward.
Oh.
The security risks are too high.
Yeah.
You just don't use the service.
You just don't use it.
You avoid it, problem solved.
Problem solved.
But you might be missing out on some of the benefits.
Right. So what about mitigation?
Mitigation.
What could that look like?
So that's where you put controls in place
Okay.
to reduce the likelihood or the impact of a security breach.
Okay.
So you might encrypt sensitive data
Okay.
that's stored in the cloud.
All right.
You might implement strong access controls
Makes sense.
or work with the cloud provider
Okay.
to make sure they're meeting your security requirements.
Okay. I like it.
So you're mitigating that risk.
You're mitigating it, but sometimes even with mitigation,
Yeah,
there's some residual risk.
there could be.
And that's where transfer comes in.
Transfer the risk.
Transfer the risk. So what would that look like?
So you might purchase cyber insurance
Okay.
to cover the financial losses
Yeah.
if there is a data breach.
Makes sense.
Or you choose a cloud provider that's got a really good reputation
Oh,
for
wait.
security. Right. And a really solid service level agreement.
Okay, so you're transferring that risk
You're transferring the risk
onto someone else.
onto someone else.
I like it. And then there's acceptance,
Acceptance.
which sometimes the cost of mitigating or transferring a risk
Yeah,
outweighs the potential impact.
it does.
So in those cases, you might choose to accept the risk,
You might.
but you need to document it
Absolutely.
and have a plan in place
You got to have a plan.
if something happens,
Just in case.
just in case.
Right.
So risk management is all about making those informed decisions
Informed decisions.
based on understanding the threats, the vulnerabilities,
Yeah,
the potential impacts.
got it.
Now, I know you cybersecurity pros are dealing with a mountain of regulations already.
I know, it feels like it never ends.
It feels like it never ends, but compliance
Complaint.
is another huge part of Domain 1.
It is.
And it's not just about checking boxes.
Right.
It's about protecting your organization and its data.
Protecting your organization.
So which regulations are we most likely to see
On the exam.
on the exam? I'm guessing the usual suspects.
You got it globally.
Yeah.
You got ISO 27001 and 27002,
Okay.
which are all about establishing and maintaining
Okay.
an information security management system,
Okay. Or an ISMS.
or ISMS for short.
Okay. So these standards are internationally recognized,
They are.
and they cover a wide range of security controls
And best practices.
and best practices.
Yep.
And, of course, we can't forget about GDPR,
GDPR.
the EU's General Data Protection Regulation.
It's had a huge impact
Huge impact
on how we handle data
on how we handle data.
globally,
If you're dealing with EU resident data, you need to know GDPR.
like the back of your hand.
Like the back of your hand, absolutely.
Yeah, GDPR is all about protecting
Yeah.
the privacy and the personal data of EU citizens.
Okay.
Regardless of where that data is processed.
So it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if your company is based in the EU,
If you touch EU data,
GDPR applies
GDPR applies, and it sets those requirements for data collection,
for collection.
processing,
Yeah.
storage, and consent.
That's right.
So now what about industry-specific regulations?
Industry specific.
What are some of the big ones that cybersecurity pros need to be aware of?
Okay, so if you're working with payment card data,
Okay, credit card.
credit cards,
Debit card.
you need to know PCI DSS,
Okay.
the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard.
All right, so that mandates a whole bunch of security controls
It does.
to protect that cardholder data.
That's right.
And compliance is mandatory
Absolutely.
if you process, store, or transmit
Any of that credit card information.
any of that credit card information. Now in healthcare,
Healthcare.
we've got HIPAA,
I hop up.
the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act,
All about protecting health information.
protecting the privacy and security of protected health information,
PHI.
or PHI. So if you're in healthcare,
IT.
is non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable. You got to know it. You got it.
And then we can't forget about financial regulation,
Oh, yeah.
like SOX,
SOX.
the Sarbanes-Oxley Act,
That's right.
which focuses on financial reporting and internal controls, and GLBA, the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act,
That was all about protecting.
protecting the privacy
Yeah.
of consumer financial information.
Lots of regulations.
Lots of regulations.
Yeah.
It's enough to make your head spin.
It is.
But knowing these key regulations is critical.
Absolutely.
Not just for the exam,
Right.
but for your everyday work.
For your everyday work.
It's about protecting your organization,
Yeah.
building that trust with customers,
It is.
and avoiding those hefty fines.
Nobody wants those fines.
Nobody wants those fines.
Yeah.
So beyond knowing the regulations,
Yeah.
the CISSP exam wants you to know
How to build a program.
how to actually build a program,
A compliance program.
a comprehensive compliance program.
It's not just checking boxes.
It's not.
It's about creating that culture of security.
Yes.
That permeates the whole organization. The whole organization. So what does that look like in practice?
What's a solid compliance program look like?
Yeah, what are we talking about here?
Okay, it all starts with the strong foundation
Okay.
of policies and procedures.
So these documents outline the rules,
The rule.
the guidelines for how your organization
Yeah.
handles security.
Handles security and protects that sensitive information.
And protects that sensitive information.
That's right.
But policies are just words on paper
If nobody follows them.
if nobody follows them. And that's where training comes in.
Training and awareness programs.
Yes,
You got to educate your employees
we do.
about those security threats,
Okay.
best
Of
practices,
course.
and their role
Yeah.
in protecting that information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this training needs to be ongoing.
Ongoing, not just a one-time thing.
Not just a one-time thing.
Ronnie.
You've got to make it engaging.
Engaging.
People learn best when they're interested. Thoughtful.
So think interactive modules.
Okay.
Real-world scenarios.
Yeah.
Maybe even some gamification.
Gamification. I love it.
A little friendly competition.
Little friendly competition.
It goes a long way.
It really does.
And don't forget about monitoring and reporting.
Oh, yeah, we can't forget about that.
You need systems in place
Yeah.
to track security events,
Okay.
identify suspicious activity, and generate reports
Right.
that demonstrate your compliance efforts.
All right, so you're proving that you're doing
You're doing what you say you're doing.
or you say you're doing.
I like it. And regular audits are crucial to find those gaps in
Yeah.
your security program
Okay.
and making sure you're meeting all the requirements.
That's a health checkup
It is like a health checkup.
for your security posture.
For your security posture. That's a good way to put it.
Now, we've talked about preventing incidents,
Right?
but what happens when something does go wrong?
Wow.
And let's be honest, in cybersecurity,
It's a matter of when, not if.
it's a matter of when, not if.
Something's going to happen.
And something will happen eventually.
So that's where business continuity planning comes in.
Business continuity planning. This is about making sure your organization
Can keep functioning.
can keep functioning even when disaster strikes.
When disaster strikes.
So if a hurricane wipes out your data center,
Oh, yeah.
a ransomware attack cripples your network,
It happens.
or a key employee wins the lottery and sails off into the sunset.
That's the best case scenario.
That's the best case scenario, but you've got to be ready for anything.
You got to be ready for any.
And the foundation of a good business continuity plan
Is a good BIA.
is a thorough business impact analysis, or BIA.
A BIA.
This helps you identify those critical functions
Critical functions.
and figure out what would happen
What would happen?
if they were disrupted.
Yeah, what if this goes down?
You're playing what if.
What if that goes down?
What if our main website goes down?
What if the database gets corrupted?
What if our customer database gets corrupted?
What if the building floods?
What if the whole building floods?
You got to think about those worst case scenarios.
You do, and figure out how to minimize the damage.
That's the key.
So the BIA helps you establish those recovery objectives.
Recovery objectives.
So we're talking RTO,
RTO.
recovery time objective,
Recovery time objective.
the maximum amount of time a system can be down
Before it really hurts.
before it starts to really impact the business.
Right.
Then there's RPO,
RPO, recovery point objective.
recovery point objective, the maximum amount of data loss
Data loss.
you can handle.
Yeah, how much data can you afford to lose?
How much can you afford to lose
Before it's a big problem.
before it's a major problem? And then there's MTD,
MTD, maximum tolerable downtime.
maximum tolerable downtime, that absolute longest your organization can survive
And survive.
without that particular function
Yeah.
before it faces irreversible damage.
That's a scary thought.
It is a scary thought.
Yeah.
So it's about figuring out your pain points.
Your pain points.
How much downtime can you handle
Realistically.
realistically before things go haywire?
Yeah. And how much data loss?
How much data loss is acceptable
Yeah.
before it becomes a real problem?
A real problem.
And once you've identified those critical functions
Yeah.
and those recovery objectives,
So you're ready to make a plan.
you can start to develop your continuity plan.
Your continuity plan.
So this plan outlines the strategies and the procedures
Strategies and procedures.
for keeping your organization operational during a disruption.
During a disruption.
We're talking about identifying alternate work sites,
Alternate work sites.
setting up those data backup and recovery procedures.
You gotta have backups.
You've got to have backups, coming up with communication plans
Communicate.
to keep employees and customers informed,
Inform.
and creating emergency response procedures
Emergency response.
to handle those critical incidents.
It's like a playbook.
It is like a playbook for when things go sideways.
When things go sideways.
You've thought about the problem.
You've thought about them.
You've got procedures in place.
You got procedures.
You're ready to act
Ready to act
quickly and decisively.
quickly and decisively.
It's the difference between panicking and having a plan.
Having a plan is so much better.
So much better. And trust me, when you're dealing with a crisis,
Having a plan makes all the difference.
it makes all the difference now.
Absolutely.
A business continuity plan
Yeah.
isn't static.
It's not a one and done.
It's not a one and done. You got to update it regularly.
You need to test it. You need to update it regularly
That's right.
to reflect the changes.
The changes in your organization.
Your organization, your technology, your infrastructure, your business processes.
All of it.
All of it. Now, before we move on to the next big section,
Okay.
let's just take a moment to kind of reflect on what we've covered.
Take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath because it's a lot.
It's a lot of information.
It is a lot of information, but it's all connected.
It is all connected.
We've talked about the core principles of security,
The CIA triad.
the CIA triad: authentication, Authorization.
Accountability.
And non-repudiation.
Non-repudiation.
We've delved into risk management.
Risk management.
How to identify, assess, and respond to those risks.
Respond to those risks.
That are most important.
The important ones.
To your organization.
To your organization.
We've tackled compliance.
Compliance.
Highlighting key regulations and frameworks.
Frameworks.
That you'll need to know.
For the exam.
For the exam and for your everyday work.
For your everyday work.
As a cybersecurity professional.
That's right.
We've emphasized business continuity planning.
Business continuity.
Outlining the steps you can take to make sure your organization can weather any storm.
Weather any storm.
But remember, it's not about memorizing facts.
It's not just about the facts.
It's about understanding the why.
The why.
Why are these concepts important?
Yeah, why do we care?
Why are these regulations in place?
Why do these regulations exist?
It's about developing that critical thinking mindset.
That's the key. That will help you analyze situations.
Yeah.
Make those informed decisions.
Informed decisions.
And become a true cybersecurity leader.
A true leader.
And as we move into the next section,
okay,
we're going to be exploring the human element of security.
The human element.
Because as much as we rely on technology,
my dear,
people are often both our greatest strength
and
our biggest vulnerability.
That's right. So speaking of the human element,
yes,
let's talk about something that often gets overlooked.
Okay.
In the rush to implement the latest tech, security awareness training.
Security awareness training. It's funny because we spend all this time and money on firewalls.
Right.
Intrusion detection systems.
All the fancy tech.
All the fancy tech. And then someone opens a phishing email.
Oh, no.
And bam, all that security.
Out the window.
It's out the window.
It's gone. It's gone.
It's like having a high-tech security system for your house, but leaving the front door wide open.
Right.
Security awareness training is about empowering people. Yes.
To be that first line of defense.
To be the first line of defense. So it's not just telling people, don't click on suspicious links.
No.
It's giving them the knowledge and skills.
You got it.
To identify those threats.
Right.
Understand the risks.
Understand the risks.
And make those smart decisions.
Make good choices.
Make good choices and a really effective program.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just checking boxes.
Does.
It's about making security relevant.
Relevant to people's work.
To people's everyday work.
Absolutely.
So think interactive modules, real-world simulations.
Simulations.
Maybe even some friendly competition.
Oh, I like that.
Between departments.
Okay.
To see who can spot those phishing emails the fastest.
A little healthy competition never hurt.
A little healthy competition never hurt. And it's not just about preventing those attacks.
Right.
It's about creating that culture of security.
Security.
Where everyone feels empowered to report suspicious activity.
Exactly.
Or speak up if they see something.
Something fishy.
Something fishy. Something that just doesn't seem right.
Doesn't seem right. You got it.
I love that it's about building that human firewall.
That human firewall.
That's just as important.
Just as important as any technical control.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about something that might feel a little less exciting.
Okay.
Than, battling hackers.
Right.
But it's equally crucial.
It is.
Personnel security policies.
Personnel security policies.
Yes. The nuts and bolts.
The nuts and bolts.
Of keeping your organization secure from the inside out.
From the inside out.
So these policies cover everything.
Everything.
From background checks for new hires.
Background checks.
To access reviews.
Access reviews.
And termination procedures.
Termination procedures.
So it's about making sure that only the right people.
The right people.
Have access to the right information.
To the right information.
And that those access rights are regularly reviewed.
Regularly reviewed.
And updated.
And updated.
And when someone leaves the organization.
Whether it's a happy retirement.
Happy retirement.
Or a sudden departure.
A sudden departure.
You need to have a solid process in place.
A solid process.
To revoke their access.
Revoke access.
Collect company property.
Collect company property.
And make sure they don't walk out the door with sensitive data.
That's right.
It's like changing the locks.
Changing the locks.
After someone moves out.
You got it.
You want to make sure. That only authorized personnel have the keys to the kingdom.
The keys to the kingdom. I like that.
Now, let's zoom out a bit.
Okay.
And talk about something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
Security governance.
Security governance.
This is about having that overarching framework.
That overarching framework.
That guides your organization's security posture.
Guides your security posture.
Ensuring that it aligns with business goals.
Aligning with business goals.
And adapts to the ever-changing threat landscape.
That ever-changing threat landscape.
So we're talking about the big picture.
The big picture.
The strategic level of security.
Strategic level.
It's not just individual policies and procedures.
Right.
It's about that overarching strategy
Overarching strategy.
that brings it all together.
Brings it all together. So, exactly.
And there are 3 key components
Okay.
to this framework
Here.
that the CISSP exam really wants you to understand.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first is the security organization itself.
The security organization. So, who are the key players?
Who are the players?
In this organization, what are their roles
What are their roles and responsibilities?
and responsibilities?
Well, it depends on the size and the structure of the organization,
Okay.
but typically you'll have someone who's ultimately accountable
Okay.
for security.
Okay.
Maybe a chief information security officer,
A CISO.
a CISO, or a dedicated security manager.
Okay.
You'll also have folks focused on different areas,
Okay.
like incident response,
All right.
vulnerability management,
Makes sense.
security awareness training, and so on. Okay, so you've got your specialized team
Specialized team.
of security experts,
Experts.
each with their own area of expertise,
Their own area.
working together
Working together.
to protect the organization.
Protect the organization. That's the key.
And it's crucial to have those clear reporting structures.
Clear reporting structure.
So everybody knows who they report to,
Who they report to.
who's making the decisions,
Who's making decisions.
and how that information flows
How information flows.
up and down the chain.
Up and down the chain.
Okay, so we've got our security team in place.
All right.
What's next?
Next up is the security strategy.
The security strategy.
This is where you define
Okay.
how security aligns
So,
with the organization's business objectives.
so how does security support
Smart.
the overall goals of the organization?
What are the key goals?
What are the key goals?
What level of risk is acceptable?
Okay.
How will resources be allocated?
To security initiatives.
To security initiatives, exactly.
So it's about making sure security isn't just an afterthought.
In it after itself.
It's baked in
Baked into the DNA
into the DNA of the organization.
of the organization. That's right.
And a strong security strategy
Yeah.
should be clear, concise, and adaptable.
Adaptable because things change
Things change,
all the time.
so it needs to evolve as the organization
An organization.
and the threat landscape change.
And the threat landscape change.
It's like having a roadmap
A roadmap.
for security guiding you towards a more secure future.
I like that. And that roadmap needs to be flexible
Flexible.
to handle those detours
Detours.
and those unexpected obstacles.
Those unexpected obstacles, they're always going to pop up.
They always pop up. Now, the third component
Component.
of this framework is the policy framework.
The policy framework.
This is where you translate that high-level strategy
high-level strategy.
into those actionable guidelines
Actionable guidelines.
that everyone in the organization can understand.
Everyone can understand and follow.
And follow. That's the key.
So this is where those specific policies
Numbers.
and procedures come into play.
Procedure.
The rules of the road for security.
The rules of the road are like that.
So there's a hierarchy,
A hierarchy.
right? You've got your governing policies,
Governing policy.
those high-level statements
level.
that set the tone
The tone.
and the direction for
Like
security.
Yeah.
And then you have the more specific technical policies,
More specific.
the standards, the procedures, the guidelines,
All the details.
all the details
Yeah.
that provide the instructions on how to implement those principles.
How to implement those principles. You got it.
So it's like building a house.
Building a house.
You start with the foundation,
The foundation.
those governing policies,
Governing policies.
and then you add the walls, the floors, the roof,
Walls, floors, roof.
the more specific policies and procedures
Specifics.
that make it all come together.
That make it all come together. That's
Yeah.
a great analogy.
And effective policy management is key.
Policy management is key.
You need a clear process for developing,
Developing.
reviewing,
Reviewing.
updating, and communicating
Communicating.
those policies.
You got it.
It's an ongoing cycle
Ongoing cycle.
of continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement.
And this all sounds really important,
It is.
but I think it will be helpful
Okay.
to talk about some best practices.
Best practices for implementation.
For implementation, how do cybersecurity professionals
Yeah.
take all this theory
All this theory.
and actually build a strong security program
A strong
in their organizations?
in their organizations.
In their organizations, that's the million-dollar question.
It is the million-dollar question.
And there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
But there are some key principles
Okay.
that can guide you on this journey.
All right, I'm ready.
The first is strategic planning.
Strategic planning.
You need to define clear objectives
Okay. Objectives for the program.
for the program.
establish metrics for measuring success.
So how are we going to know if we're doing a good job?
Exactly how are we going to measure it?
Okay.
Secure that executive buy-in.
Executive buy-in, crucial.
We talked about that earlier.
Yes, we did.
And allocate the resources needed
Yes.
to make it all happen.
Because you can have the best plan in the world.
You can.
But if you don't have the resources,
If you don't have the people, the money,
the tools,
it's not going to happen.
it's not going to happen.
So it's about making the case.
Making the case for security.
For security, showing how it aligns with the goals of the organization.
Aligning with the goals.
And why it's worth investing in.
Why it's worth investing in.
And once you have that plan in place,
You've got the plan.
it's all about operational excellence.
Operational excellence.
So this means conducting regular assessments.
Regular assessments.
To find those vulnerabilities.
Find those vulnerabilities.
And those gaps.
Continuously improve it.
Continuously improve.
Your security program, based on those assessments.
Based on the assessment.
Maintaining thorough documentation
Documentation.
of your policies, procedures, and incident response plans.
It's all got to be documented.
It's all got to be documented and engaging with those stakeholders across the organization to foster that culture of security awareness.
Culture of security awareness.
That we were talking about.
We were just talking about that.
You were just talking about that.
So it's not set it and forget it.
It's not set and forget it.
No, you got to keep working at it.
You're constantly evaluating. Your security posture, identifying those areas for improvement.
Areas for improvement.
And adapting to that ever-changing threat landscape.
Ever-changing.
Exactly.
It's about making security an integral part.
An integral part.
Of your organization's culture.
Of the culture.
And operations.
And operations. Now, let's talk about something that's often overlooked. In the rush to implement technology and policies. The human element.
The human element.
Of security.
Yes. The people.
The people.
The people who use and protect our systems and data.
We can have all the fancy tech.
Yeah.
The tightest policies.
The girls.
But if people aren't on board, it's all for nothing.
It really is. It's about understanding.
Yeah.
That humans are both our greatest asset.
Yes.
And our biggest vulnerability.
Absolutely. We make mistakes.
We do.
We get tricked.
We get tricked.
Cut corners sometimes.
Sometimes.
And those actions can have a huge impact on security.
Huge impact.
So how do we address this human factor?
The human factor?
I'm guessing security awareness training.
Security awareness training.
There's a big part of that.
Absolutely. We touched on this earlier.
Maybe.
But it's worth repeating.
It is.
Security awareness training isn't just about checking boxes. It's about empowering people.
I like that.
To be security champions.
Security champions. So it's not just teaching people to start phishing emails.
Right.
It's about making them
active participants.
Active participants in the security process.
Exactly. Think about it.
Yeah.
Every employee,
okay,
regardless of their role, can contribute to a stronger security posture.
I like it.
The receptionist
okay,
who notices somebody tailgating.
Oh, yeah.
The accountant who questions a suspicious invoice.
Right.
The developer
who
follows secure coding practices.
Okay.
These small actions can make a huge difference.
Huge difference. It's about creating a culture.
A culture.
Where security is everyone's responsibility.
Everyone's responsibility.
Not just the IT department.
Not just IT. It's everyone's job.
It's everyone's job. And that's where effective training comes in.
Effective training.
It's not about dry lectures or clicking through boring online modules.
Nobody likes those.
Nobody likes those. You've got to make it.
You got to make it relevant.
Relevant and engaging. Engaging.
So what are some best practices for creating
best practice
training that actually works?
Okay. Well, first, you got to know your audience.
Know your audience.
What are their roles? What are their daily challenges? What are their motivations?
So it's like marketing. You need to understand
you
your target audience to craft a message that resonates.
That resonates.
You got it.
And just like a good marketing campaign.
Yeah.
Security awareness training needs to be engaging and memorable.
Engaging and memorable, make it stick.
Make it stick. So think interactive exercises, real-world simulations.
Simulations.
Storytelling.
Storytelling.
Humor.
A little bit of humor.
A little bit of humor.
Yeah.
Anything that'll help that information stick.
Make it fun.
Make it fun. And I love the idea of using storytelling.
Storytelling.
Because people are naturally drawn to stories.
They are.
And it can be a really powerful way to illustrate the impact of those security breaches.
Yeah, the real-world impact.
And the importance of following those best practices.
Best practices.
And don't forget about reinforcement.
Reinforcement.
Security awareness isn't a one-time thing.
It's not a one-time thing.
It needs to be an ongoing process.
Ongoing process.
So think regular reminders, phishing simulations, updates on new threats, and even rewards and recognition. For employees who demonstrate strong security practices.
Yeah. Celebrate those wins.
Celebrate those wins. I love it.
It's like building a muscle. You got to keep exercising it.
You've got to keep exercising it to keep it strong. Now let's talk about personnel security policies.
Personnel security policies.
These are those often overlooked but crucial policies that help protect your organization.
From the inside.
From the inside out.
From the inside out.
So these policies cover a wide range of activities.
They do.
From background check.
Background checks.
For new hires to access reviews and termination procedures.
Termination procedures. That's right. It's about managing that human element.
Of security throughout the entire employee life cycle.
The whole life cycle. So let's start at the beginning.
The beginning?
Background checks.
Background checks.
What are some best practices for vetting those potential employees?
Vetting those employees.
And making sure they don't pose a security risk.
Okay, so background checks are all about due diligence.
Oh, diligence.
You're verifying the information that the candidate gave you.
Okay.
You're checking for criminal history.
Okay.
Confirming employment history.
Right.
And sometimes even doing credit checks.
Okay.
Depending on the role.
Makes sense.
And the industry regulations.
Okay.
The depth and scope of these checks should be proportionate.
Okay.
The level of risk.
To the level of risk. So you're not going to run the same background check on someone applying to be a data entry clerk.
Right.
As you would for a CISO.
Exactly. Different levels of risk.
Different levels of risk.
Different levels of checks. Different levels of checks.
Yeah.
I like it. And it's not just about catching those bad actors.
The bad guy.
It's about setting those expectations. Right from the start.
From the start.
A robust background check process sends a message.
It sends a message.
That security is taken seriously.
Security is important.
Security is important at your organization. Once an employee is on board,
they're on board.
What are some key policies and procedures to keep in mind?
Okay, well, access control is paramount.
Access control is so important.
It's about making sure employees only have access to what they need to do their jobs.
What they need.
That's it.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Nothing more, nothing less.
So we're talking strong passwords, multi-factor authentication. Regular access reviews to identify and revoke unnecessary privileges.
Revoke those privileges.
It's the principle of least privilege. In action. Giving people the minimum access they need to do their work.
That's right.
And let's not forget about termination procedures.
Procedures.
Whether an employee leaves voluntarily or involuntarily. You need a clear process. For revoking access. Collecting company property. Conducting those exit interviews. It's about managing that transition securely. And minimizing the risk of data leakage or sabotage.
Minimize that risk.
It's like changing the locks after someone moves out.
Changing the locks.
You want to make sure only authorized personnel still have access.
That's right.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
In this deep dive.
A lot of ground.
Into Domain 1. From those foundational security concepts to risk management. Compliance, business continuity planning, and the all-important human element.
The human element.
We've explored the technical details. The strategic frameworks and the practical considerations. For building a strong security program. But remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Just the beginning.
The CISSP exam is challenging.
It is.
But it's also incredibly rewarding. It's a testament to your dedication to the field of cybersecurity and your commitment to protecting your organization and its data. So as you continue your studies, remember to focus on those key takeaways. The CIA triad. Risk management. Compliance. Business continuity. And the human element. Don't just memorize definitions. Think about how they apply in the real world.
Real-world application.
Use your own experiences to make those connections and solidify your understanding.
Solidify your understanding.
And most importantly, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Ask questions.
Challenge those assumptions.
Challenge assumptions.
And keep learning.
Keep learning.
The world of cybersecurity is constantly evolving.
Constantly evolving.
So it's crucial to stay curious, stay informed.
Stay informed.
And stay engaged.
Stay engaged.
Well said. That's a wrap on this deep dive.
Into
CISSP Domain 1.
Domain 1.
We hope you found it insightful. Engaging, and maybe even a little bit entertaining.
A little bit entertaining.
Good luck with your studies, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
For another deep dive.
Another deep dive.
Into the world of cybersecurity.
The exciting world of cybersecurity.